As I watched that show, I realized that they were doing some really interesting things with narrative structure. And yet, there would be these episodes which were pure comedy. You know, they would be self-parodies. They would do a black and white episode with the voiceover being the hard-boiled detective, and they would have Angela Lansbury on, and they would do all these funny things. But there was a sub-narrative about Magnum. We knew where he grew up. We knew what his father gave him before he went off to fly in Korea. We knew that his father was shot down. We knew that Magnum and his friends had been in Vietnam and had been captured. And the opening episode in several seasons were these kinds of things. And the one that I write about most often is the one where Magnum goes out on a surf ski and the tide takes him out and nobody knows where he is and he thinks he's going to die. And he has flashbacks and we get this, so that narrative structure is going on underneath these episodes, and I call it a cumulative narrative. It builds up over the whole series, and it's very serious. It's a very serious narrative. And Mr. Belisario is a conservative guy, and he's building in a lot of very patriotic, from his perspective, kinds of things through all of that. And they didn't call much attention to it, but they did it, and there would be these episodes that would just appear, they would have it. And then there's another episode where they sort of break the rules, where there's this Soviet agent who had tortured some of the guys while they were in Vietnam. And now, after the war is over, he comes to Hawaii as a embassy, as some sort of foreign agent, an ambassador. He's not really an ambassador, but he's in the foreign service for Russia. And he comes, and they realize that they're there, and what are we going to do about him, and how should we do these things? And he's a bad guy. And they don't know what they're going to do, the crew of friends. And in the last part of the episode, Thomas Magnum puts him in a car, takes him out, and they're driving along, and Magnum drives off into a part of the jungle there and says, "Get out of the car." And he walks him out into the jungle, and the guy is looking at him, and he says, and Magnum pulls a pistol out, and he says, you can't shoot me, that's not what you Americans do. You're not going to do that. And then we focus camera on Magnum, and he pulls the trigger, and he kills the guy. Just straight out murder right there. And to do something like that, it's not quite the same as Henry dying in MASH, but it says, there's something here that I'm going to try. And I think they did a number of shows like that. Now, for me, the important part is not that show so much as the cumulative narrative, because it's in between the episodic narrative and the completely serialized narrative. And I think more and more shows have something like a running narrative that's about something other than the surface of the show. And Mr. Selleck has had some interviews where he comments on the discovery of the cumulative narrative and references the little article that I wrote. And he says, so now we go around putting CN notes on the scripts for cumulative narrative. And I don't think the show got better in the last year after that.